Hello, everyone. I'm Professor Geek. Welcome back to the channel. Welcome to part 3 of our Something Wicked This Way book club. With me, as always, as I'm sure you've heard, it's my trusty TA, Big Al. Say hi, Al.
Hi, Al. Was I speaking over as you clicked on?
No, you were just breathing very heavily into the mic while I was.
I breathe heavy. Get used to it.
I'm used to it. I just think it's funny.
Ah,
Well, you're grumpy tonight.
it's been a rough couple days.
I'm sorry. Yeah, it was actually a good thing we canceled the other night, right?
Yeah, it was actually. I mean, it ended up. It ended up. Yeah.
Believe it or not, I was almost going to cancel again tonight. I was just so freaking exhausted. In my head, my heart wasn't in it. And I was like, oh gosh, if I cancel, I think like 5 people right now are going to pitch a hissy fit on Twitter. I was like, all right, just do it. Come on. Like, woe is you. People like to come to your channel. Big problems, right?
Suck it up, Grace.
I know, right? So I did, and actually, in between that decision and getting here, I'm actually quite excited about tonight's study. So it's all good. Welcome to the chat. Let's see. We've got Crizzy Kitty with a very important question to me. She says, Daniel Heron, Chris Damon, welcome. Paladin Demo, Stephen Cruz. Let's do this, man. These chapters were intense. I know. Good stuff.
Yeah, there was some cool stuff going on there.
Yeah. Professor Nanette Pacelli says hi, sweeties, to both of us.
Ooh, hi. No.
You know, I was just listening to I pulled up the last book study we did so I could copy and paste the description. So it was playing while I was copying that, and like the exact same opening. I said, "Oh, and Nessa says hi to us," and I was like, "No." That's an every time thing.
It could be either that or no. I don't know where that one comes from, but it just kind of.
I think that's what you did last time. Yeah.
Yeah, I usually do that one.
Pardon me, folks. I felt like I don't know.
I'm trying to remember where the hell
I had like an allergy
left off.
22 was the last chapter we read.
Oh, it was? I thought it was 21.
Or was it 21? I marked it. Yeah, 21 was the last chapter we read, so we go into 22. Yeah.
Okay. I don't know where to start.
Yeah, I had like a bit of an allergy fit when I was getting the channel. the stream together. So I took some medicine, but hopefully it'll take effect here in a second. Apologize if I'm stuffy or coughing into the camera. Microphone rather. There. Okay, who else is good? You're with us. I'm guessing Troy's here. So yeah, there's Troy. Troy said, I pay a lot for this higher education. How are you going to make tenure if you keep canceling classes? Yep.
Do you always have that? Do you have that rule at school where if the professor is X amount of minutes late, you can leave?
It is a technical rule. At most universities, actually, it is. So, yeah, that is actually at most universities have that technical rule. So,
yeah, because I remember once I was in a class. It was an anthropology class. I remember it well. We were all sitting there counting down, and he had 30 seconds left. That sucker walks through the door. I was like, "You bastard!"
Stephen Cruz has tweeted, super chatted to me that he is in the opposite state of dryness. See, I'd know better than just to read willy-nilly any old thing Stephen Cruz super chats, because sure as hell it's going to end up in a clip.
Dude, Stephen Cruz is trying to make you immortal.
Oh, he's done that. Yes. Now that he's here, we'll have to share that little lovely clip with the chat at the end of the stream. Melissa Harris, welcome. Said I came to say hi. Can't join tonight. Book club. My other son Matt came home for a visit. Going out to eat tonight. Oh, cool. Well, thanks for coming in and saying hi. It's always appreciated.
Just a little behind the scenes. It's only just now that everything I've got is on the right page.
Okay.
YouTube wise, I'm like, it took that long for me to get straight.
Crizzy Kitty wants to know if I'm a good man or a happy man. We'll have to answer that when we get to that portion now.
I know my opinion of that, what that might be.
For me?
Yeah.
Oh.
I hesitate to say.
What is your opinion?
You're good. I think you're a good man.
Thank you. Why, thank you.
Yeah, yeah.
I thank you.
I think you're a very good man.
I think you're a very happy man. So there we go.
You're one of the, well, thank you.
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
No, I can tell. Hey, I can take it.
It's
Right.
we will talk about that. Not, of course, they're not as mutually exclusive as Charles would have us believe. We got to take into account his mental state and where his character development is in the book as well. But we'll get there.
Mhm.
Stephen Cruz says, "Well played." All right. He says, "I've won the battle, but not the war." Oh, I'm sure you'll win the war. You're a crafty one. I'm actually glad you're here tonight, Stephen Cruz, because I was wanting to open with something that it's not absolutely apparent to our text tonight, but it is something that's been apparent last time, and I meant to go over it, and it will come back after tonight. So I just want to make sure that we've covered this. So going back, remember the end of the last portion we read, we were talking about a number of different times the text is talked about. It was the heard the bells on Christmas Day that Charles hears the illustrated man humming or whistling rather when he's putting up the carnival flyers, and Jim and Will, when they're going to watch the carnival set up, they hear the calliope playing. They say church music, but it's all wrong. Like the wrong keys, or it's wrong. It's just done quite wrong. And then they also heard the funeral march being played, Chopin's funeral march, and that was some of the references to music thus far we've seen. This work, we talked about last time too, how Ray Bradbury is very religiously influenced, even though he probably wouldn't have called himself a Christian in the day. He was highly influenced by Christianity, and he was highly influenced by his childhood, I think. And this book really comes out of that. This and Summer Wine, or Dandelion Wine, I'm sorry, really, and a lot of his short stories and stuff like that too, really do speak from his sort of middle American childhood there, and that's heavily influenced by Christianity. He grew up listening to these sermons, and he grew up, hearing the Bible. So he grew up with this idea of not strict allegory, but straight up, parables that could be done. And we see a lot of this. And we'll talk about some of it tonight with tonight's text. But the idea of music is one. Stephen Cruz, I'm curious if you know much about this, because if you do, you'd probably be able to give us some terminology here that I have to usually go consult notes on. I didn't have time to do that before the stream. So, I used to play bass, but I was never like a huge music theory man. I knew enough scales to riff off of depending on whatever key, the song was in. But, actually getting into music theory, there's something called the devil's interval or the devil's tritone, depending on, what source you consult. And have you heard of this, Al?
No, I've heard of the brown note.
I might have spoken about this part. I might have spoken about it for in like some of our Halloween Monstober reviews, music videos from last year.
Is it an actual, like, what is it, like a certain sound or a certain tone or a certain interval?
It's an interval. So like, you can play an arpeggio, like the first, third and fifth of a chord or whatever. But see, our human ears are used to and expect certain things from music. Right. Music can affect even the human body, the organs. And those of us who are religious will tell you that music is a very spiritual thing. It goes right past your reason and goes to the to the primal parts of you. And that's why songs in minor keys are a little more sad, and songs in major keys are a little higher. Just try hearing someone sing the Happy Birthday song and not ending on the same note that it began on. We're so accustomed; it just sounds so wrong. It's grating to some people, even more so than others. And there's a certain interval that is so dissonant, and the people call it the devil's tritone or the devil's interval or whatever. I'm actually going to share one of the more popular and more pronounced versions of this. I'm going to do a screen share here. This is and then I'm gonna I'll end this up by playing Chopin's Chopin. Well, we'll do Chopin first. Let me share the screen here. So this is not that one.
Now, is this like something that can appear in any piece of music, or is it like a certain?
It's a certain space between notes. So whatever key you're in, you can, but it has to purposefully be done because it is very grating,
Oh,
and it's
okay.
often done in darker sounding or darker themed music. So where was that? Just had it. There we go. Forgot to. All right, so I'm going to play this. This is just a recording of Chopin's funeral march here. So. Dun, dun, dun. You know, you got that. It's a.
Mhm.
You hear it a little bit here, and this is the march that, of course, Will and Jim heard from the funeral there. It's a dark sound, right? You know, and as a, you know, the funeral should be dark, right? I'm going to show you. For those of you, I won't play this. For those of you who are big Tim Burton and Nightmare Before Christmas fans, remember in the they even use the Devil's Interval there too when the Halloween town is putting together Christmas, and there's the beginning of the song making Christmas. You know, that's using this Devil's tritone too, you know, because it's supposed to be funny, you know, these monsters, you know, celebrating Christmas. This is probably a more popular, or this is certainly more pronounced. Not a lot of people have heard this one, but it's really pronounced. You hear it in this because it was supposed to be pronounced. This is the theme, and this is so. I'm going to play this long enough to really get the effect on you. You cannot listen to this and pay it any amount of attention and not be creeped the hell out. I mean, just flat out. This is the theme from The Omen by Richard Donner. I mean, Richard Donner directed me. He did do the theme. Yeah. So we got, you know, a little bit of the chants, you know, to begin with to make it sound all kind of creepy anyway. And here it hasn't dropped yet, but yeah, Chris Damon said goodbye monetization. I know. Dun, 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 dun. Oh my gosh. And it's accented at just the right points with that chorus to just like, am I the only one getting chills down my spine? Like creepy chills?
It's disconcerting.
Yeah, exactly. Some people are going to be more affected by it than others.
I usually do this. I usually do this in the dark. Thank God I got my little book light on.
Yeah. It is. I can't even get through it. It creeps the hell out of me. And it's like a primal thing. Like, it's not like I'm thinking about it and I'm physically terrified or logically terrified. It just goes straight to the nerves and to the emotions, and it's just like, oh, I gotta stop this. Creeping me out. But go listen to that on your own. It's wicked. It's some wicked stuff. I know, right? It's like, oh, God, let's sing the Hallelujah chorus or something just to get that out of our system. But Bradbury knows this, and Bradbury's bringing in things like the Chopin's Funeral March, and this is kind of what he's doing when he talks about church music played wrong, or you know, putting a lovely, beautiful, worshipful song like I Heard the Bells on Christmas Day into somebody dark and twisted like the Illustrated Man's Mouth. You know, that's what you know, Bradbury knows his stuff, and he's playing with these themes. It's really, really cool. Let me go to the chat there because I was going off from the welcome. Janice Zeal is with us. Hello.
Well, I am I'm sufficiently creeped out now.
Right? The after effects of it are just like, whoa. Oh. Let's see. Kitty said I have the Omen theme song saved to my phone for music time. Are you kidding me? Wow. Kind of dark, Chrissy. Stephen Cruz says it plays a lot with minors and dissonance, builds tension, all the tones and chords are freaking awesome. Yeah. I knew Stephen would know about this.
Troy Pacelli, O Fortuna from Carmina Burana has the same effect on me. Love that piece. For me, that's more of a. It doesn't creep me out. For me because it's featured in the movie Excalibur. Mm-hmm, it kind of pumps me up actually.
Okay. Muhammad is with us, and again, no freaking notice from YouTube. Yeah, that stinks. Sorry about that, but glad you're here with us. Jazz composers play with those type of chords, etc. Yeah. So I just wanted to start with that.
There's sorry, but there's a piece by the band Clannad that kind of has that effect on me. I can't remember the name of it, but it's featured on the soundtrack for the Robin of Sherwood series, and it's just this dark, it's like Castellane or something like that. I don't know how it's pronounced or anything, but it just has that choral creep kind of old. It's like mystical, and it's just otherworldly sometimes.
So we're going to start here in chapter 22, and we left off with the boys had they're back home now. They let's see what they were exactly where they came back from. I'm getting my things mixed up here a little bit. Yeah, okay. So they're back home. They got in trouble for being out so late, and they were in bed, and then they were waiting to hear the other, and Jim Will hears the stomping on that old boardwalk behind the house, where they keyed it to kind of play to each other, and he looks out, and Jim is basically ditching him. Jim's ducking out by himself, and of course Will knows where he's going, so Will starts to chase him. We had a great chapter there. What I love about this chapter is because you know where he's going. You know he's going back to Miss Foley's house to try and get her quote unquote nephew, who's really Mr. Cougar. Gone back in time with the carousel to take him to ride the carousel, right? Because Jim has seen. Jim went into the Hall of Mirrors and Jim saw wonders beyond his dream, which basically we imagine is probably the acts he'd get to do as an older person, which is basically sex. I mean, that's what we can infer. But what I love about Will, I love that Will has kind of been this sort of like wishy-washy, not wishy-washy, but this sort of like milquetoast little like, I guess that's not right to do, kind of all the way. And I love that when Will finally takes action here, Will gets it. Will knows exactly what Jim wants to do. And this is the same Jim that just made him promise before not to leave him, not to let him go out by himself or whatever. So Will's really only answering what Jim wants him to do. But I just love this. I'm going to read a little bit back here because it's just sort of the moment where I'm just like, stop reading. I go, yes, because I'm a Will fan, kind of, align with him.
You're in chapter 22, right?
Yeah. Okay. A page or two in here. Jim, he mourned, and he heard the merry-go-round motioning, gliding on black night waters around and around, and Jim on the black, he's just imagining this, and Jim on the black stallion riding off and about, circling in tree shadow, and he wanted to cry out, look, the merry-go-round, you want it to go forward, don't you, Jim? Forward instead of back, and you on it, around you, and you're 15, circling, and you're 16, 3 times more, and 19, music, and you're 20, and off, standing tall, not Jim anymore, still 13, almost 14 on the empty midway, with me small, young, me scared. Will hauled off and hit Jim hard on the nose. Right there, I'm just like, yeah. Then he jumped him, wrapped him tight, and toppled him rolling down, yelling in the bushes. He slapped Jim's mouth, stuffed it, mashed it full of fingers to snap and bite, suffocating the angry grunts and yells. The door opened. Will crushed the air out of Jim, lay heavy on him, fisting his mouth tight. I just think that is so like, damn it, you are so stupid. You are so myopic. There's no more reasoning with you here. Just take this. Bam. For your own good, asshole. Yeah, I just love it.
that one line is kind of sounds weird though. Fisting his mouth tight.
Yes, well, fisting wasn't exactly the
I know, but it just you look at it
and make sure everybody got it right. Am I right?
Mine just goes there. But it is like it's literally Will trying to knock sense into the boy.
Yeah, quite literally. Exactly.
I mean, yeah, it's like absolutely literally.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Then you've got, of course, so we know little Mr. Cougar comes out and finally sees them, and just like talk about evil. I mean, the evil setup here he does. Did you see that coming? The way he frames them.
No, I actually did not see that coming.
Yeah, I know.
When I heard the word when the jewelry started being mentioned, I'm like, that little son of a.
Yep. Yeah, so he went up there and stole a bunch of jewelry from Miss Foley, and then went outside and threw it around them on the ground, and then started screaming for the police and running off. What's interesting about this, though, is that let's see if I want to jump. All right, so they chase him. They chase the nephew back because they're running away. Mrs. Foley sees them out the window. Obviously, they could stop. Will says he could stop and explaining things, but Will can't really stop because Jim is chasing young Mr. Cougar, not to bring him to any kind of justice, but to get him to still get him to help him ride the carousel forward. And Will is there to stop Jim. He's his brother's keeper. There's that concept in here. So he's going to keep going. So they follow him off to the carnival where Mr. Kruger, of course, is getting back on the carousel so he can become older again and then deal with these two little spies. But what I like is going back into the next chapter. Is it the next one? No, it's not the next one. There's a few chapters ahead. I'm going to duck out a little bit of.
Now, Cougar's main purpose is basically to tempt Mrs. Foley.
Yeah, there to draw her into the mirror maze and then to the carousel. Yeah, and he's
because because I know becoming the younger, I was just wondering, just quite a step to go through to get her onto that carousel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, it's we'll see that he's already done his job because I'm not going to jump ahead. I'm going to keep where we at here, where we are here. But yeah, they'll jump ahead. So the boys decide they chase him there. Of course, we have this wonderful moment again where Cougar makes the carousel and turns it on, but Will jumps to the controls, and Jim the whole time is trying to basically get on the carousel and go forward as well. But Will is again tackling Jim, holding him down, keeping him from doing it. As he's holding Jim down, the controls are scuffed in the fray, and it goes faster and faster and faster. And Mr. Cougar ends up this like withered old corpse at the end because it's just shot around too many times, of course. And we'll come back to that. But on the next chapter here, chapter 24, it starts off with this image of insects again. Moths ticked off the high tin shade arc light, which swung abandoned above the crossroads. Do you remember where we saw that image before, Al?
That was with the girl on the ice.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Mr. Tom Fury, when he goes to that window, the white moths ticking on the window. If you broaden it even beyond moths, we've got a lot of insect imagery in this book. Remember the scarab beetle on the lightning rod? That was one of the things that told Jim that it was Egyptian. There's been a number of other places. We talked about the bugs, insects, night flies, and stuff like that. We'll point out a few more as we go through here. But that's something they kind of marked, and we'll talk about towards the end of the book. So the boys called in the police, and the police accompany them along with two medics, basically, to go back to the carnival because they think there's this dead man there. And I love the description as they enter into the tent. All of these different, because these are all the freaks from the sideshows, right? A rickety card table nearby, 4 men sat playing orange, lime, green, sun yellow cards printed with moon beasts and winged sun symboled men. Here the akimbo skeleton one might play the skeleton one might play like a piccolo. Here the blimp who could be punctured every night, pumped up at dawn. Here the midget known as the wart who could be mailed, parcel post, dirt cheap, and next to him an even littler accident of cell and time. A dwarf, so small and perched in such a way that you could not see his face behind the cards, clenched before him in an arthritic and tremulous oak-gnarled fingers. Now, this dwarf, of course, they recognize by the hands to be Tom Fury, the lightning rod salesman. And what I think is interesting here that Tom Fury didn't just get made into a dwarf, quote unquote. Now, this is back in obviously long before more of the sensitive language, that we have today, for these kinds of things. But I think it's very interesting and telling that we've got the midget, quote unquote, who is somebody who would just be, as we call him today, a little person, right? But then there's somebody even smaller than that, the dwarf, somebody that you could look at in its depth, like it's clearly not just, dwarfism, I guess. Is that still a technical term for little people? I don't know. But this is supposed to be somebody that you would look at and think, whoa, like something's really wrong, something's really gone, and he says, genetic accident or whatever, accident of cells or whatever. Like you're supposed to really do a second take. at this what this lightning salesman has become. Do you have any ideas as to why that would be his fate, Al?
Not really. I anticipated this question. I truly did, and I really don't have an answer.
You don't have to. I mean, I've got one. It's not so much given, especially from the text we have tonight, but
well, I mean, like I said, sometimes I know nothing in stories is random.
Mhm.
As you have said, everything usually has some kind of meaning.
Mhm.
But sometimes I wonder, did he just? That's just the fate that Dark picked.
I mean, you could look at it that way. I don't think you necessarily have to look at it, any farther, because the text doesn't really highlight it big time. But I mean, towards the end we do a little bit.
Because I was picturing, you were talking about picturing, everybody has the idea of a little person, being the midget, but then you said even this thing, this shrunken, shriveled thing. I know what in my mind I'm kind of seeing and think of, but you would not get the reference, although Troy would. There's an episode of Doctor Who where the Doctor is aged rapidly ahead in the David Tennant years, and he's literally fits in a birdcage. And he's like this shriveled little teeny foot and a half thing, and it's just kind of creepy looking. It was CGI, but that was kind of the impression I was getting.
Well, if you think about remember what Tom Fury, last time we saw him was when he was walking through the town, and he should have been moved on by then, right? He'd already gone through the town, he'd sold the lightning rod, he should have moved on, but he was lingering. And he's lingering there, and then he sees because he knows the storm's coming, the quote unquote storm.
Right.
And then he sees the window display and the most beautiful woman in the world. And whereas Charles Holloway saw the impression of a beautiful woman, and that affected him well enough, Fury sees the woman herself there. And he's so overcome by this. He's so overcome by this that he just blindly walks right in. I think he leaves his bag even outside. I think it says, if I remember correctly, I might not. We know he leaves the bag behind, period.
Yeah, because the kid's found it.
Yeah. So he's at that moment, and in the context of the story, you get the idea that he's overcome by his lust, right? His absolute need and lust for this, this hot woman. He's reducing himself to that. All of his cognitive abilities, all of his knowledge that he has about the storm, what the storm might be, all of that, all of it is overridden and reduced down to this carnal desire for pleasure there. And that's what we see him physically. He's been reduced down. This is something you see done in literature quite often. In fact, it's in Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. When Dr. Jekyll first starts to turn into Mr. Hyde is very small, short, misshapen, deformed, because that was Jekyll's dark side. He kept it down, he kept it repressed, he kept it controlled, and pushed down. So it was dark, it was deformed, it was short. But as the book progresses, Hyde begins to get taller and more refined, and not quite as it becomes more of an imposing figure because he's let it exercise, he's let it out, he's let it grow. So I would argue that's why we see him as a dwarf, because he's the movie changes this up a bit, and we'll talk about that, but we see him as a dwarf because he's been literally physically reduced to what he allowed himself to be morally reduced to. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. I almost, because I was almost thinking of, like you were talking about reduce, it's like all the other stuff's been stripped away, and now you just have this, what's left.
Yeah, that's a fine way of looking at it too. Definitely. Yeah. So moving along, so they're in here. This Crazy Kitty's asking, another part, nearby in the booze, another 30 freaks watched the fires fly until the lava sipper glanced, saw the intruders, and let his universe fall. The suns dropped into the water tub. Steam billowed, all froze in a tableau. An insect stopped buzzing. Constant insect imagery. Then they go in and they see the dead Mr. Cougar sitting in a chair, all hooked up to this electric chair. And Dark says, no, this is Mr. Electro. He's just in a trance, and he puts the electricity through him. And yes, indeed, Cougar does come back to life. but only barely back to life as a, as an old corpse. And you get the idea that they could eventually ride him back around backwards, but the problem was the carousel broke once Cougar, had his horrible time on it. So
they seem to have a lot of problem with that carousel.
yeah, well, yeah, as one would, right? Paladin Demo says Fury's a hunter who fell. Stephen Crew said, "Wow, that's awesome." Will mentions that later with his father. Will says he thought him to be smaller, but he grows taller. Exactly, Stephen. Yeah, we're gonna get to that. Good eye, definitely. All right, so they Cougar's brought back to life. He kind of covers for him, says, "Oh no, we just scared the boys. They were sneaking in here and everything like that." Now stop me because we have a lot to cover tonight. So stop me if I'm going too quickly and somebody wants to call something out. But then in chapter 25. Now we're in Miss Foley's house, and this is what I was going to jump to before, but I decided not to. Miss Foley saw the boys there with the jewelry. Miss Foley knows. She knows they weren't there to steal, and she also knows that nephew wasn't her nephew at this point. Before she probably didn't, but at this point she knows, and yet she doesn't care because she's been so bewitched by the mirror maze, by the images of her as a young woman. And we get in a little bit more of her interiority here and see how she's been longing for this. Miss Foley had first noticed some years ago that her house was crowded with bright shadows of herself. Best then to ignore the cold sheets of December ice in the hall, above the bureaus, in the bath. Best skate the thin ice lightly. Pause, the weight of your attention might crack the shell. Plunge through the crust, you might drown in depths so cold, so remote that all the past lay carved in tombstone marbles there. Ice water would syringe your veins, transfixed at the mirror's sill. You would stand forever, unable to lift your gaze from the proofs of time. Right. So, be so shocked by the age that you've become and so lost in the longing for what you've been before, drowning in that. And this is more of the water imagery that we saw through the mirror maze. It's beautiful, beautiful imagery. So she's so bewitched by this that she goes along with it. She's allowing them to do their will on her. She plays along with it, calls Will's father, gets them in trouble, and then she's off to the carnival again. So I kind of see her making her own bed there.
Yeah.
I like some of the things when Will and Jim are arguing at this point. They've left the police. Police have dropped them off at fake houses. They pretended were theirs, and they're talking again. And Will wants to go back and talk to like the chief of police at this point. And go ahead.
How big is this town?
It's a small town, but it's big enough to like not everybody knows them necessarily. So
I they are always playing that fake name thing.
Yeah,
and it's always working.
Yeah,
well, almost always working.
But, I mean, it's not Mayberry by any means, but it's also not big metropolis either. So, but we got to find someone higher up than the chief police. Will says, keep trying. Now we know what the score is. Okay, what's the score? Jim says, what's the carnival done is so bad? Scared a woman with a mirror maze? So she scared herself, the police would say. Burgled a house? Okay, where's the burglar? Hiding inside an old man's skin? Who'd believe that? Who'd ever believe an old man was a boy of 12? That line there just kind of jumped out at me because he's talking about, of course, who would believe that, this old corpse, was just the other night was a young boy, but it also kind of speaks to the theme of age in the story. Like that's Holloway would certainly apply that to himself. Who'd ever believe that an old man was once a boy, that kind of thing. So you're playing with double entendres there in the language with not double entendres, with double meanings there. Then there's this interesting part when they're Jim still deserves a big punch in the face because Jim's like, oh gosh.
I mean, there are a lot of times just the boy needs a good slap.
He does. He needs a beating. Oh gosh, it's a mess. If only there was still some way to apologize to Mr. Cougar. And Will looks at him. Apologize? Will yell to a man eating crocodile? Jehoshaphat. I love that word. You still don't see it. You can't do business with these Omers and Goffs. And then the text explains to us what Omers and Goffs are. They're the monsters the two boys have given to the monsters in their nightmare. They're the names the two boys have given to the monsters in their nightmares. And what's interesting about these monsters is that in the bad dreams of William, the Olmers moaned and gibbered and had no faces. And the equally bad dreams of Jim, the Goffs, his peculiar name for them, grew like monster meringue pasted mushrooms, which fed on rats, which fed on spiders, which fed in turn because they were large enough on cats. What do you think the Ulmers and Goffs? Do you have any ideas what they represent, Al?
Uh, I mean, give it to me.
I think they're in the context of this book. I think they represent adults. People, our children are afraid of monsters. Monsters are things with power over them. Well, adults have power over you when you're a child. Because think about it, Will, who's very respectful of adults, but he keeps away from, he stays in line. So their faces are sort of a blur, and they sort of moan and talk, but he can't quite make out what they're saying. But now Jim opens his eyes. Jim spies on adults doing things that no one should be seeing in their bedroom. Jim is always watching. The text keeps telling us, and Jim knows, like that dog. Jim has this secret knowledge, right? And he's to him, he sees the dog eat dog world outside, and that's the Goffs who eat this, who eat this, who eat this, who eventually become large enough to eat cats.
Okay, or the spiders. Yeah, okay, yeah, okay,
yeah. So I thought that was interesting. I also, once I'm like all in with Will and I just kind of take my hat off to him, every little moment that he gets pissed at Jim, I'm just like, yeah, that's so great. He's talking to Jim again. He's like, yeah, you'd be adult and you'd ditch me. Jim's like, I'd never ditch you, Will. Ditch me in a minute. Go ahead.
And I like the quaint cursing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not like like if he had written this today, there'd be like S's and F's and D's and everything else going around.
Yeah.
But you have this quiz of like like you mentioned Jehoshaphat,
and
then there was that other one. I think it's like you think I like being 13 all the time, not me, but for cry Jim face it, you don't really want to be 20. Cry I mean, I know what he's talking about, but it's just kind of funny.
All right, let me go back and read this now that Al's done.
Gee, I say five words the whole time.
No, I want you to talk. I didn't know you were going to start talking. Right. I'd never ditch you, Will. Ditch me in a minute. Well, go on, Jim. Just go on. Leave me, because I got a pocket knife, and there's nothing wrong with me sitting under a tree playing mumblety peg while you let yourself go plain crazy with the heat of all those horses racing around. The heat of all those horses. He's talking about the mechanical heat from the carousel, but we know what kind of heat is really going, in calling Jim here. But thank God they're not racing anymore. And it's your fault, cried Jim. Will stiffened and made fists. love that. You still think that, don't you, you idiot? You mean I should have let you go, young, mean, and terrible? Get old, mean, and horrible enough to chew heads off? Yeah, it's just so great. Anyway, sorry, but you're absolutely right. The quaint language, and I think that's part of it too. And this book would not. This story, you bring up a good point, because this story simply wouldn't work with today's youth. Mm-hmm. It wouldn't, because our today's youth are already 20 years old by the time they're 10. In terms of worldliness and loss of innocence and stuff like that. So, I mean, that's just the culture we live in. So, yeah.
It's like the 11-year-olds in this one are more like 5-year-olds, 5 or 6-year-olds.
Mm-hmm. So they eventually they go inside the police station. They kind of tell their story. Charles is taking them home. And I love this scene. This is I think the heart of the book here. It really is. This is the key to understanding it all too. Is when Charles is not going to tell them, because Charles remember what being a boy was like and everything. Jim climbs on up and goes inside. But then you've got this just father-son moment with Charles and Will. And there's just sort of back and forth. They're like they're ebbing. They're starting to kind of make a connection, but then they kind of back off a little bit. Like Will wants to tell him, but he's like, in a few days, once the carnival's gone, because he doesn't want to get him in trouble. I'll tell you everything. I swear, Mom's honor. I like this next opening of chapter 8. The night was sweet with the dust of autumn leaves that smelled as if the fine sands of ancient Egypt were drifting to dunes beyond the town. How come, thought Will, at a time like this, I can even think of 4,000 years of dust, of ancient people sliding around the world, and me, sad no one notices, except me and Dad here, maybe, and even us not telling each other. that's a beautiful beautiful picture there. The two of them are linked. The two of them do notice such things, but they're not connecting. They're not going to tell. It was a time in between, this time at night. So they end up talking a little bit. This is where we get the good person question. What did you think about the conversation, Al? The sentiment, anyway.
I like how Charles is kind of coming to grip. He's kind of coming around.
Mm-hmm.
He's breaking out of the funk, and he's just trying to figure out exactly who he is. And I think it's a basic question a lot of us ask.
Mm-hmm.
Are we a good person?
Yeah. If it hurts so much to do the right thing, well, is there any happiness in being good? It's a valid question, from the human experience.
I mean, we all look back in our lives and we wonder. We all we've all done things that we're ashamed of or regret intensely, and sometimes you have to, does that affect your view of yourself?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a lot of what Charles does. He just thinks too much of what he's done. He just doesn't. He ignores what's going on now, especially with his son.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and that's the one thing I really enjoy. You were talking about that it was kind of the heart of the book, the father son talk there, and of course there's the more later when some bad stuff's going down, how Charles is really there for his son.
Yeah.
And you really find out just how good of a man he is.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And I agree with you totally. And I want to read a little bit of this here because I think it's I think there's a lot of truth to what Charles is saying, but I think Charles is still in his character progression. He's still in his, oh, I'm so old. Woe is me. You can't, I can't be happy and good. He's just like, he's a little fatalistic, and that shows through. But there is some truth to what he says, and I like the way it's written. It's a great it's a great study in dialogue because you got one character who's given to these these ruminations and everything like that he would do on his own, so he can kind of sound like he's monologuing there, but still it works as a dialogue. Dad took his arm, walked him over, sat down on the porch steps, relit his pipe, puffing. He said, "All right, your mother's asleep. She doesn't know we're out here with our tomcat talk. We can go on. Now look, since when did you think being good meant being happy? Since always. Since now, learn otherwise. Sometimes the man who looks happiest in town with the biggest smile is the one carrying the biggest load of sin. There are smiles and smiles. Learn to tell the dark variety from the light." That's a great line, right? Great line.
Mm-hmm.
The seal breaker, the laugh shouter, half the time he's covering up. He's had his fun and he's guilty. And men do love sin. Well, oh, how they love it. Never doubt in all shapes, sizes, and colors and smells. And that's a perfect line for the carnivore, right? Times come when trials and not tables suit our appetite. Trials, not tables, suit our appetites. Hear a man too loudly praising others and look to wonder if he didn't just get up from the sty. On the other hand, the unhappy, pale, put upon man walking by who looks all guilt and sin, why often that's your good man with a capital G, Will. For being good is a fearful occupation. Men strain at it and sometimes break in two. I've known a few. You work twice as hard to be a farmer as to be his hog. I suppose it's thinking about trying to do good that makes the men crack up on the wall one night. A man with high standards too. The least hair falls on him sometimes, wilts his spine. He can't let himself alone, won't lift himself up the hook after he fails, just a breath from grace. And I think that's where he starts to go bad. I think everything there is beautifully and so well done until the end when he's like, you got to be so hard on yourself and you got to be, and that man, just can barely keep it together. And that man, and now he's like kind of giving us his own confession.
Right.
Go ahead.
No, so you're right. It's kind of like while he's telling Will about this, he's analyzing himself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it's kind of all kind of spilling out.
Absolutely. And so they have this deep talk, and they say it's a lot of cool things. I mean, we could just do a whole session on just the talk. But what I love how it ends here. It's time for them to go up. It's time to go to bed. Will's going to go on up through the climb the trellis because they don't want to wake the mother and everything like that. and he wants his dad to come on up, but his dad's like, no, that's for boys. I'm an old man, a 50. What is he, 54 or something or another?
Yes, he's 54.
It's just like, really, it's not that bad. Come on, and so he's still kind of in slum there. And but Will stops. Will looks down at him from just this distance. Dad looked as if he were shrinking there on the ground, and there's that size thing, right? Stephen, you're talking about a later thing, but here it plays in too as well. Somehow he didn't want to leave him behind there in the night, like someone ditched by someone else, one hand up to move, not moving, right? And ditching, that thing about him, Jim ditching him. Dad, he whispered, you ain't got the stuff. He just taunts him like a little boy would. And that's perfect. That's exactly what his dad needs, because his dad's like, who says? And then his dad jumps on it and they're climbing up. His dad's barely making it, but they're raking it anyway. They're cracking up laughing. They get to the top. They can barely even, contain themselves. They're having this wonderful, beautiful father-son moment of just pure joy and laughter. And I'll tell you right now, for those who hadn't read ahead yet, which is fine, because a lot of people are reading this for the first time. We're not going to spoil anything. This is foreshadowing. This is a very important scene. Both of them learn something very important here that they haven't quite processed yet, and we'll see it come back. So I love that. I thought that was a really great scene. Anything else you wanted to say about that before we move on?
Oh no, I just like they made sure they let you know that the man breathed hard. It was definitely a struggle.
Yeah. The next scene's delightfully creepy. He and Jim wake up at the same time about a.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just also like this. The old man gusted out, sucked in, and swore a fierce whisper, then climbed again.
Yeah,
I can just see him like, God damn it.
He said something, we know. That's for sure. So about an hour later, Will and Jim wake up at the same time to the sound of this balloon. Hot air balloon flowing through. Now, what kind of a sound does a balloon make? Of course, it's the perfect thing for reconnaissance, they say, because there's no cars or noises, but you still hear the fire. You still hear. We have hot air balloons coming over our house all the time because I live in a very gorgeous little
cool.
And you can hear it. If there's no like trucks going by or anything like that, you can hear the the flame when it goes off and stuff. So. It is. And of course, they look up to see the Dust Witch, and she's a terrifying individual. They thought she was a waxwork before. Her eyes are sewn shut. She's this old woman, but she's another one of the freaks there, and she can feel souls. She can't see, but she feels with her fingers and, like feels for souls and stuff. So she's the one doing this reconnaissance. And of course, freaking little idiot Jim had to take the light rod off his house. This is where the lightning rod would have come into play. But this is where danger from above is striking down. The lightning rod would have masked him, but it didn't. So you've got she realizes it's his house. She marks it with this sort of slime, that's hard to get off. She scrapes it across the roof of his house. The boys get up there with a water hose and rinse it off. And this is a kind of baptism, right? Rinsing clean. I wouldn't say baptism necessarily because water is a cleansing thing in a lot of cultures, but this is very clearly a book grounded in Christianity, in terms of themes and story and stuff like that. So we got this kind of they've done bad, they've done, they've misbehaved, they've gotten in trouble. And especially Jim here. Jim's been marked by his bad behavior, and it's this sort of baptism is part of his redemption, right? And Will helps him through it because Will's the good part of the soul, Will's the one there helping him. And then Will doesn't stop there though. Will's like, that witch ain't coming back, and I'm gonna make sure.
Yeah.
It's so awesome.
You're talking about the bow and arrow?
Yeah. And this whole this scheme, I mean, who'd ever thought he'd be capable of this the first time you met him,
Yeah, any kid's like, I'll show that witch.
Exactly. And he does. Exactly. Oh, welcome, Mara. I see Mara's here too.
Hi, Mara Jade.
Matt and Newey. A couple people popped in that I haven't say hi yet. Sorry, we get going on these things, but yeah. So and he gets his scheme and he leaves Jim behind, and I think this is really him taking the role as his brother's keeper. He did it, with violence before, but now he's doing it with helping, helping him clean the mark off, clean himself off, so to speak. And now he's going to go out and stop this temptation from coming back to Jim. And he goes out without Jim. He takes his bow and arrow and chases her down, and even comes up with the way to call her back. If she can feel souls, then I'm just going to feel very happy at the trick we played on her. And, and it draws her away and out. And they have this Scrabble. It's wonderfully written. I'm not going to delve too far into it because we need to keep rolling, but it's wonderfully written scene where it's like, it almost doesn't work, but he triumphs and I was on the edge of my seat. I'm like, yeah, go Will. That's awesome. It really is cool. And, eventually because she knocks the bow from his hand, but he just takes the arrow and throws it at one point because he's so close. He's hanging on the basket. And I love just the smile that it opened up in the balloon, increases. Really great. The blows of his heart might jar him. Yeah, it's great. So sorry. Need to keep moving. I know.
Yeah, it was that was an intense. Yeah, I remember sitting there going, "Oh, oh, geez, oh, wow," as I was listening and reading along.
Yep. So now it's showtime. It's really coming down to it now. This is that was all of, was that Friday or Saturday? That was Saturday, right? Yeah, that was Saturday. So now Sunday morning. They go back out. They meet poor Miss Foley, who's not little Miss Foley anymore, is she?
No, she's not.
She got her ride on the carousel.
She's itty bitty Foley.
Yeah, so she's not even the young, beautiful girl. Because remember in the mirror scene, she was describing like a beautiful young maiden, like a college age or something. Just about the golden age that Jim wants to go up to. They didn't give her just that. They brought her down to about Jim and Will's age. So like you careful what you ask for and how you ask for it, kind of thing. And then when they realize they both Jim and Will automatically know who it is, but neither of them want to admit it. And they're appalled at her or at the idea. Even Will, who knows they need to help her, is still quite just disgusted by the whole thing. Did you get that too, Al, or is that just me?
Oh yeah, it was like he didn't want anything to do with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
just absolutely. He just, because it's almost like she was the polar opposite.
Mm-hmm.
Of him, and it's almost you think of a magnet, it's repellent. It's repellent. Just real quick though, I do want to say I love chapter 31. It was very intense.
It's really cool because you got such an intense scene, right? And then go ahead and read chapter 31 for us.
Nothing much else happened all the rest of that night.
And then boom, next chapter. That's a
greatest chapter of all time.
It's a really good thing to bring up because that's he paced that. He made the choice not to make that just a because think about it. If that wasn't set off as a chapter,
right,
what could he have done? He could have tacked it onto the last chapter, but that would have been a really imbalanced little line of a lot of telling at the end of a really intense scene of showing, and it wouldn't have fit. He could have skipped it all together and just said at dawn. But then you don't know really what happened. Did he go back? Did there anything happen? So he go ahead and let it be its own chapter. Nothing much else happened all the rest of the night to kind of let, the readers and the characters just kind of take a breath, I
just thought it was wonderful. It just, for some reason, it worked.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. And, so we were talking about they're sort of they're appalled at the sight of Miss Foley, as a little girl. I mean, not like mean to the point of being mean. Jim wants to be mean, but Will's not going to. Will knows who she is. Will's going to help her and stuff like that. But I think that visceral reaction to her is because it's disordered nature. As Will tells Jim before, he's quoting the preacher who was clearly preaching on Ecclesiastes, a time for this, a time for that. Everything in its time. And that's the piss and vinegar of youth, as they say, wanting to jump all of that and jump ahead and letting their ego get in their way, and get this and this before they've really learned how to use things or how to respond and be responsible and all that kind of stuff. And and of course the lie of old age is that there's nothing else to live for once you've lost that youth and vigor, so there's that wasting away of all the wonderful things you can be doing in olden age with longing and pining away for the youth and stuff. So it's disordered nature, we would say from a Catholic perspective, but I think that's what's affecting them so much in there. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I was just I was kind of ruminating on Mrs. Foley a bit. or Miss, or whatever you want to call her now.
Mhm.
just I was just wondering how much it affected her brain,
Mhm.
because she was very disoriented.
Mhm. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
but I loved how caring Will was.
Mhm.
You're saying how Jim wanted nothing to do it, but Will was like, "It'll be okay. I'm
Mhm.
here for you."
Yeah.
And it's he's just such a nice guy, even though he wants to bust Will in the head, bust
Mhm.
Jim in the head. But
Yeah. Yeah, and I think you can do I mean, you can definitely do a theological reading of this book, even though I said, obviously Bradbury himself wouldn't call himself a Christian. He's highly influenced by Christianity, and I think you could do a basic, even a basic Christian. It doesn't have to be too intensely into one denomination or another, but there's so much great things in there where you can see Will is kind of a form of the church, or of the person. If you don't want to go that route, you can at least think the person who wants to do good and help others do good, the person
mhm,
who doesn't want to be influenced and pulled down into the muck,
mhm,
around him, but is determined to be this brother's keeper, or sister's keeper, even, so people who have slipped and fallen, they're not, they're not ones to turn their nose up at. They're ones to have mercy on and help. We
mhm.
see that with Jim and Miss Foley. So
Yeah,
they realize. Okay.
because I love that it's just two lines where she's going like, who'll believe, and then he
Mhm.
just goes, "I believe."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah, and that's a sweet moment too. I mean, you
Yeah.
guys, that's a great moment. Yeah. So then they see the carnival coming. Well, they come back and she's gone. So they figure the carnival must have grabbed her again, and the carnival's there. Doing the parade through town, and they realize that they're doing this parade to search for Will and Jim. So they know that they've got to hide. They got to make themselves scarce. They can't go back home. That might lead them there to their families and so forth. So they call Will's father, give them the sort of cryptic, message about, they got to be gone for a day or two, or whatever, cover for them. And then they're in hiding. And Charles Holloway eventually finds them through this sort of kind of like destiny almost. But where does he find them? Do you remember where he finds them, Al?
Um. I want. I want to say the under the grate, but that's later, I think.
Yeah, no, it is. It's under the grate. I remember read this real quick. Stephen Cruz says Jim made a fist and was going to hit her. Dude's a little a-hole.
he,
I know, right?
he truly is.
Well,
He's a little shit.
Well, you always react more viscerally to somebody committing the sin that is within yourself, right?
Hmm.
That's why the people that annoy you most are probably people that are exhibiting traits that you yourself don't like to think about that are in yourself or whatever. So yeah,
Right.
I mean, this is somebody who succumbed to the temptation that he would have were not for the grace of Will, you know. And there's that's a loaded phrase too, because the way Will's name Will. Um, but yeah, that's why he's reacting so you're right. He Charles does find them. They're below the grate, below the street there in the grate. Do you remember where the grate is? Where it is in the on the street there? Like what's it in front of?
The cigar store.
Yeah, the tobacconist. And
Yeah.
that is actually the first place where Will and Jim um really first sensed the carnival coming. Remember, they were running out from the library that night, and
Mhm.
everything. Like at the certain time, the city, the town wrapped up. It was closing time. And firstly, they go to the tobacconist, and the guy who I forgot the guy's name, tobacconist, um, jumps out from behind the wooden Indian, and kind of scares him, whatever. And then he kind of stops because he's looking off, and they're like, "What's up with him?" They go over to the barber. So it kind of has a symmetry there. Um, they're hiding beneath, and then you've got the Tetley's his name, Tetley. Then you've got the illustrated man following Charles Holloway over there, and it's a really intense scene. I mean, this is good dramatic irony where you've got this is good suspense rather. So I was talking the other night when we did our rewatch of Tim Burton's Sleepy Hollow, and how Tim Burton broke the cardinal rule when we saw the little boy hiding from the headless horseman, and the
Mhm.
horseman comes in and takes his mother and father, and we kind of know that's going to happen, and that's terrifying enough. And we've like, wow, that's been a ride having to watch that. Now we got this poor little boy under this floor. We're terrified that the horseman's going to find the boy. That's suspense right there. You don't need to milk that anymore. but Tim Burton had the horseman turn around, go back in, and actually find the boy. And it was like done so blatantly and over the top. You knew Tim Burton was kind of poking fun at the trope or at the rule, but it still just kind of was. It was unpleasant to watch. And it's a principle Hitchcock talks about a lot in storytelling. You don't let that happen. So we have the boys hiding under the grate. Mr. Dark is right there above them, talking to Charles, who isn't, he catches on pretty quickly and does a good job, masking them. But there's also the points about like when Mr. Dark's got their faces illustrated on his palms, and he becomes so mad at one point that he grips his fist into his palms, and the boys down there, their souls are contorting because it's like they're linked somehow to those illustrations. But then also the blood that he must have drawn from his nails into his palm drips upon the face that it was drawn of, below. That's just like, whoa, So that was a great scene. Anything you want to say about that before I talk about something specific in there?
No, I do get free. I like how the concept of all the people in the carnival are kind of spies for Dark. Not only legitimate spies, but almost like he can see what they see because of with the dwarf.
Yes, good point.
So
That's
the dwarf's face was less human, more machine now. In fact, a camera, the shuddering eyes flecked, sightless, opening upon darkness. Tick. Two lenses expanded, contracted with a liquid swiftness. A picture snap of the grill.
Yep.
And it's kind of like,
That's exactly what I wanted to bring up, Al. That's a perfect segue. Do you remember? Do you remember where we saw that kind of imagery and talk before about somebody's eyes?
What, in this book?
Yeah. It was the nephew.
Cougar?
Yeah, little Cougar. When they go there to talk to him or whatever, to kind of test things out, when he's looking at them and they talk about the click snap, when he looks at them and little cameras for eyes or whatever, taking them in and stuff like that.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So, what does that mean, right? So we've been talking about it a lot already tonight, that what's the difference between Will and Jim is that Will doesn't look where he ought not to look. Jim sees everything. Jim's got this forbidden secret knowledge, and we talk about sin. I mean, sin's a theme in the book. Jim wants sin. Jim wants to get what he shouldn't have yet. And that's what, going back to the story of the Garden of Eden, that's what sin was. They wanted to eat of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, right? Knowledge, that forbidden knowledge is kind of what it's part of. What would that be like to do that? That kind of stuff. So that's this idea of sight, this theme of sight is there. Will's monsters are blurry faces because he won't look right upon them. He doesn't want to, but Jim knows exactly what they look like, what they do, what they eat. So again, and all of these individuals we know now from the principle of Fury, the dwarf, that at least Fury was a victim who became one of the freaks. So you can imagine that maybe the rest of them are too at this point, but for sure Fury is. And what is Fury's what power has he given? Like this, he's been reduced down to his carnal desire there. Faculties smushed into this, reduction of himself. But what does he still have that works very well? Those eyes, those searching, seeing eyes, seeing everything, recording everything, even if it takes him a little while cognitively to put it together. And then you can start drawing connections already then to the Dust Witch, who's blind, yet still sees plenty, So you can imagine what she might have, what story might have brought her to there or whatever. So it's a great picture with that, the idea of the theme of eyes and eyesights and forbidden sights pictures, because Jim wanted to go look into the window again and stuff like that. It's a really amazing scene. Stephen already brought up the point about Will looking up at his dad as his dad starts to take up for him and kind of play along the game, and realizing how tall he never realized how tall he was, and stuff like that. Really is great scene. Well done, pacing and everything like that. I'm going to kind of skip it though, unless you got something else you want to talk about it, Al, or say.
No, I'm good.
What did you think? Well, one thing, what did you think in the end when Dark is walking away? He successfully confused the Dust Witch with his loud talking and stuff like that, so she can't sense Will and Jim, and she's going to walk away now. but then he says something. He taunts Dark a little bit. He's like, "Have a good day now," or something like that. And Will says, "No, Dad, don't." And then Dark comes back and looks at him and asks him, "Your name, sir? What's your name?"
Oh yeah.
And then he flat out tells him where my name is, where I work. Boom. And Will thinks this is a great mistake. It says Charles himself doesn't even know exactly why he said this. What did you make of that? I have my theory, but you can, whatever you think.
Kind of like it's almost like the whole tattoo thing, imprinting, knowing, information is power.
Yeah. Well, that's with the names. That's why he wants their names so bad.
Yeah,
right?
A lot of people say, if someone knows your name, they have
power over you.
They have a power over you,
Yeah.
and sometimes it's best to use another name.
Rumpelstiltskin, for example, that whole story. Yeah.
Yeah, but I saw it almost a little bit like when Charles did tell him everything. I don't know how much was Dark's influence or Charles's cockiness coming out.
Yeah,
because I mean, it's almost like going up that ladder has kind of started something inside of him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good. I'm glad you said that. Okay, yeah. Are you finished though? Because I don't want.
Yeah, that was all.
So let me tell you what I think about this, and it kind of goes off what you're saying there. You can tell me what you think of it. I think Charles is on a he's chosen a route right now. He doesn't even fully understand himself why he actually said that. But think about it. Let's say he hadn't said that. What would have been the benefit? Mr. Dark wouldn't have been able to find them at the library because that's the fear, right? And I'm not giving anything away, but he's basically telling him, this is where I work. This is what my name is. This is, you can find me now. That's what he's saying to this evil that he's met. And I think this is a man who's been so terrified for so long, and he's still not completely through it. He's still on the journey, on the progression here, but he's been so terrified of evil finding him, right? He's been, giving himself a hard time about being a good man or not. Terrified of death specifically, death when the witch, who can't see at all, she comes over to them. She goes, "There's Dark and there's an old man." Yes, a very old man. She's feeling his soul. She can't see him, right? She just knows that he feels and fears and he's old inside. That's what she senses there. And I think this is him saying, "Bring it." I think this is him saying, "You're going to find me one way or the other. Death is coming one way or the other." He doesn't totally understand it yet. He certainly doesn't understand how to fight it yet. But I think this is him kind of stepping up to the battle a little bit. And I think it's really cool. And we can see if we still think that, once we get through the end and stuff.
Oh man, could you drop a little foreshadow?
The last thing I had to bring up is from chapter 38 when Charles has told the boys, he said, "Stay in hiding all day if you can. And come see me at the library tonight." And he's going to go to the library and try to gain as much knowledge as he can to, research these guys and see what could be done if they could find out anything that could really call the police in or whatever. He just doesn't know. So he's going to go trying to figure things out and tells the boys to stay in hiding until they can come there. The boys finally come there at night. And what did you make of their goings on that day? What kept them occupied that day, Al? Do you remember?
They just kind of, I'm trying to remember.
It says at first they hid for a while. They had
because I was sorry. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I'm actually way ahead of you. I was thinking of what the dad was finding out.
Oh, gotcha. So it says they had hidden old garages. They had hid on old barns. They had hidden the highest trees they could climb and got bored. And boredom was worse than fear. So they came down and reported to the police chief and had a fine chat, which gave them 20 safe minutes right in the station. And Will got the idea of touring churches, and they climbed all the steeples in town and scared pigeons off the belfries and steeples and in town and scared pigeons off the whether or not it was safe in churches, and especially up with the bells or not, no one could claim, but it felt safe. But there again, they began to get starchy with boredom and fatigued with sameness, and were almost on the point of giving themselves up to the carnival in order to have something to do, when quite fortunately the sun went down. Now, this is such a true thing to children, right? I mean,
Yeah, because I do remember when that part was happening. I'm thinking, how the hell are they getting to these places without being seen?
Yeah, that too, right?
They're not exactly, ninjas.
Mhm.
So they're not exactly, they're trying to stay out of trouble, perhaps,
Yeah.
by just walking around. And I think that's why they get bored, is because they're not finding trouble.
Mhm.
And I think they like that.
Mhm.
So that's where, when you say they wanted to give themselves up to the carnival,
Yeah.
it's like that. It was, it's like, for fun,
Yeah. Yeah.
for the most part.
So we can see kids easily doing that, but Chris Damon gets where I'm going with it, right? The idle hands, right? We have the saying, "The idle
Mhm.
hands of the devil's workshop." I see like a mini little parable in here too, especially with the idea that church is being thrown in there later, because they they know that they're doing right by hiding. They're doing what they're supposed to do by staying out of sight. They can't go into the battle. They can't go ride the carnival rides right now. They know they're supposed to stay low, keep out of sight. They know they're doing the right thing, but it's boring to do the right thing. So, well, they'll go and talk to the police chief. They didn't have to, but at least going and admitting that they were wrong or whatever about the break-in or whatever, or reporting in or whatever, at least that gives them something to do. They didn't have to do that, but they did that. Well, then they think, well, let's go to churches, right? Because churches will be safe there. But churches are boring. These steeples, and they just get a little boring, And then it's right up to the point where they're like, you know what? We'll just go to the damn carnival, and that's it's kind of a way of especially when you get to those places in life where you're just supposed to wait. That's your station in life at that point, is to wait for
Yeah.
something. It's boring to wait sometimes. It feels like it's just nothing's really happening. You're doing the right thing though, but it's just like and it's so easy, especially in these themes in context of youth wanting to jump the gun. It's so easy to jump the gun and get yourself in trouble and cross the line to where you're no longer in the right place, and so forth. So
Yeah.
um,
And like, like I say, being bored when, when they were hiding and everyone's looking for them, there's that adrenaline running. They'd come down from that.
yeah, exactly.
So, so they didn't have that adrenaline rush. I mean, that's what they were seeking, and they couldn't find it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 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 absolutely. So that's really all I've got. Charles starts to tell them, some of the I don't want to. Am I getting past the chapter here? I just running one together in my mind.
That's 38. Yeah.
Yeah, he
38.
tells him about the autumn people. The autumn people
Mhm.
that he remembers Pastor Newgate talking about. And this is actually I'll read this because it's a really good little section here, and then I'll talk about Bradbury's this idea in Bradbury.
Can,
What's
can
that?
I make a quick a quick comment?
Yeah, absolutely.
This was very reminiscent of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Written before it, long before it, obviously.
Yep.
But Bradbury, this is one of the books you can tell Stephen King pulling off of a little bit. But this principle of evil, a timeless evil coming to towns or whatever. I mean, it truly is as old as the Billy Goat's Gruff, which King kind of took as his first influence for it. So it really is something that's in the human psyche, and it's in human civilizations. So it's good to look for stories that contextualizes it and bring it out into a story for us to kind of make some sense of it. So Charles Holloway brings up the ads he's been looking at, same ads. He's seen the ads and the pictures of this carnival over the years, like all through the 1800s, basically. So these are people who've been coming there for a while, much longer than a person with natural life would. His voice trailed off. Beware the autumn people. What? An old religious track, Pastor Newgate Phillips, I think. Read it as a boy. How does it go again? He tried to remember. He licked his lips. He did remember. For some, autumn comes early, stays late through life, where October follows September and November touches October. All right, let me read that again. I'm very wrong. For some, autumn comes early, stays late through life, where October follows September and November touches October. And then instead of December and Christ's birth, there is no Bethlehem star, no rejoicing, but September comes again, and old October, and so on down the years, with no winter, spring, or revivifying summer. For these beings, fall is the ever normal season, the only weather there be no choice beyond. Where do they come from? So basically, this is Fan Man.
Jeez.
The dust. Where do they go? The grave. Does blood stir their veins? No, night wind. What ticks in their head? The worm. What speaks from their mouth? The toad. What sees from their eye? The snake. What hears with their ear? The abyss between the stars. They sift the human storm of souls, eat flesh of reason, fill tombs with sinners. They frenzy forth in the guts, they beetle scurry, creep, tread, thread, filter, motion, make all moons sullen, and surely cloud all clear run waters. The spider web hears them, trembles, breaks. Such are the autumn people. Beware of them. First of all, hats off to Charles Holloway just remembering all of that from a tract he read when he was a boy. Mm-hmm. But, in days before television, maybe you could actually remember stuff like that.
Beautifully written.
I know, right? It's just amazing. Yeah. It's but so a couple touches on a few things there. And again, looking at this as sort of a religious reading, especially as a Catholic, I think about the liturgical calendar and how for Catholics anyway, the church gives you a season. If you do follow the liturgical calendar, that each part of the year does have a season for the health of your soul, right? There's seasons like Advent, there's times of Lent, but there's times of rejoicing and feasting like Christmas. And there's even in the ordinary time, you have certain phases, and stuff like that. But, or if you don't want to see it in church wise, you could just look at any old human. Nature itself has a time for everything, right? Each season is a certain, a lot of people will tell you that in, certain times a year you feel it different ways or whatever, or different, things happen naturally to people as they do to nature around us. So, but this is a disordered nature. Again, this is a people who lives only in October, and I jibe at Fan Man. It's not people, because I'm like one of them too. October's fall's my favorite season. I love that. That's my weather. That's my jam, so to speak. But it's not.
The Fan Man is the autumn king.
That's right. But it's not just talking about that. It's talking about an autumn of the soul. People who live in that that dying time. And you think about Holloway himself was pretty dangerously close to that, just living in that obsession with the autumn of his life, the dying of his life. Oh, he's gonna die. He's so old,
and I was also kind of curious about the dates, because you look at them and it's not an interval that's regular. But it does happen. It does seem like it's a generational thing, although you're never quite sure exactly when.
I think you hit on it right there. It's about generational, because that's not a perfect set of years, and that's what King took for it, right? That it would come through every such and such to such and such years, but it wasn't always exact. And I think it's because it's generational. Like as you said, I think you hit on it perfectly there. The last thing I'll say about this little part here is that if you like Bradbury's work, go find The October People. There's a book he wrote called The October People, and he kind of plays on this idea of the autumn people, though it's not really about truly evil people. Basically, the Addams Family movie's coming out soon. I'm very excited about it. But he writes in the introduction about how Ray Bradbury and Charles Addams, and I'm talking about Charles Addams, the guy who originally came up with the concept of the Addams Family. He was the cartoonist who wrote the cartoons that the television show was based on back in the day. And the new animated designs for the new movie are trying to evoke his original designs in the cartoon. But Bradbury and Addams had this idea of doing this sort of concept together that was going to be a little Addams Family-ish, but it was going to be Bradbury's idea of the October People. And they just never eventually made it happen. Addams went on to write the Addams Family. So Bradbury's like, fine, I'll write the October People. And it's a really fun, spooky. It's not scary wise. They're not horrific people. It's more like the Addams Family style. Like it's a little boy. Even you kind of follow mostly through the family, and a little spider lives in his ear, and it's his friend and talks to him. There's a mouse in his pocket, and it's just a beautiful collection of these little shorts that they all kind of take place around different members of this family. That's very Addams Family-esque. It's really cool. It's October People, so definitely check it out. Stephen Cruz said, yeah, I'm going to check it out. Stephen Cruz also wanted to ask about the dream that Jim had. Going back a little bit, because we kind of walked right over it. But after Will took down the balloon, he meets up with Jim the next day, and Jim had the dream of the funeral procession coming to town.
Right, yeah.
And it had a long, long, long coffin, and Jim looked in the coffin in his dream and saw that it was the balloon, right? The dead balloon.
Yeah. Did he it was like a shared dream?
I think I thought it was just Jim's dream, but Will knew what it was about because Will had lived it, or
okay.
I think maybe I'm wrong, but I think that's what it was going on. And yeah, so Steve says it just a setup for the next scene, connected to Mr. Dark and the carnival. I want you to tell me, but I don't. I want you to tell me, but I don't at the same time. Well, it's definitely a setup at the next scene, but it's also just a more what they know now. Like Jim knows in his heart that what the town sees is, hey, it's fun, it's a parade coming to town. Jim knows in his heart of hearts is a real funeral. So it's this him kind of slowly getting, even though he's so slow to act on it, and in the end, still, whatever. But he knows he's starting to really kind of get some more self-knowledge, and he knew that too the night before when he's freaked out that they can come back and find him now. There's a part of him that wasn't just excited that they were going to come back and find him and maybe let him ride on the carousel. He's so it's a little bit of a redemptive arc for Jim, I think. And just a beautiful picture, a beautiful foreshadowing. I think it's easy for them to see the parade and immediately know what they're there for. It kind of bridges a lot of that. So yeah.
So next time we're finishing.
Yeah, next time we are finishing the book, because we're going to do that. We're going to finish it up and talk about it this coming Sunday, and then the Saturday after that is the rewatch of Something Wicked This Way Comes the Movie.
Ooh.
So yeah, Saturday the 6th is the Sunday we'll talk about it, and then the 12th, I think the 12th, or am I wrong? Troy, you're still here. Am I getting that wrong? What day did we say we were doing Hellraiser on? It was either going to be the 12th or the 19th, right? Was those the 2 days? If I'm doing this right, please tell me if I've said something different before, because you know me and numbers and dates and stuff like that.
Sounds
but if
right.
we're definitely doing the rest of the book for next week. So on the 6th, we'll definitely talk about it. And that would mean on the 12th, we'll watch the movie. The 19th, we can do Hellraiser, but that leaves us with one open for Saturday, which we'll announce at office hours tomorrow night.
I thought it was the 19th.
Okay. Troy said, yeah, we never pinned down, but it was one of those 2 days. Okay, well, we'll just go ahead and pin that down now, Troy. So if that's good with you, are you free, Troy, on the 19th to join us for Hellraiser? Because that's you're going to take point with us on that. So yeah, that means we'll announce. I need to do a couple more things to check tonight. So technically tonight, because it's after midnight, but tomorrow night when we do office hours, we'll announce what the rewatch for this Saturday is going to be. But then the Saturday after that will be the movie Something Wicked This Way Comes, the film version. So here we go.
Sweet.
All right, Troy says the 19th is good for him. So cool. Sorry, we really did kind of get wrapped up in the book here, folks, and that it tends to happen in the book study. But I do try to. I think I probably neglected the chat a bit more than I usually do, but I didn't see a lot of people tagging me either. So definitely, if you have any last minute questions about the book, please do shout them out, and I'd be happy to talk about them here. Chrissy Kitty says she has an anniversary edition of Hellraiser. Nice. I finally found my anniversary edition of Sleepy Hollow, but it's too late now because we watched it already. So
that was a lot of fun the other night. I like that.
Metanui said, skip Hellraiser, it's terrible. I'll admit, Hellraiser is not my cup of tea. Not my cup of tea at all. And I don't really have any care to watch the sequels, but I will say after seeing the first one, I think it's a deeper movie than people give it credit for. I saw a lot of stuff in it myself, and I can't wait for Troy, who's a diehard fan, to really get in here and talk about from his perspective too, as well as you, Al. I mean, you've loved it too.
It has been. I've only seen it one time a long time ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it'll be kind of like watching it for the first time again.
Mm-hmm. Stephen Cruz said Showgirls is kind of a horror film. Nudge, nudge. He's never going to give up on Showgirls.
You never know when that might show up on another channel.
Muhammad said, how do you think the book would be written today? Well, as we said earlier, I don't think the book could work set during today. Definitely not. But I think we mentioned too, or we started talking about, we might have gotten sidetracked at one point, that even if it was written today, still set back when it was set, but even if it was written today, no, I don't know of any writers with the fortitude to avoid the nonsense of current, culture to really write this out and the truth of it, so I don't see anybody desperate with questions or anything, so I think we're good.
Coolio Dilio.
Yeah. So Chris Damon said, PG, what's your opinion of need? Okay.
I was just being stupid. I was going to go for shizzle and nizzle. I don't know.
You know what that means, right?
I have no idea.
Oh yeah, you probably shouldn't say it anymore.
I'll say it just to be funny.
I'll tell you after the stream. um, Chris Damon said, "What's your opinion about Needful Things, the book, movie, read, rewatch?" I have not seen the movie yet. I need to watch that, but I did read the book and loved a lot of things about it. Didn't like a lot of things about it too, but I did like a lot of things about it. So that would be a possible one for a reread. I mean, a book study, perhaps, later to kind of look at some good things that are done and maybe some things to avoid. It wasn't something that I like as much as it, but I think it had a lot of good stuff in it. Definitely, I need to see the movie. I can't really say anything about that.
Any thoughts on the
Next book?
next book?
No, because we'll have that. I mean, would you guys want to start another book right away? So we'll be done with this one on the 6th. Would you guys like to read up on another one to have it ready for the 13th and just, keep rolling with another sort of spooky-ish book to get the rest of Halloween? That'd be fun to do. I'd be all for it. But if people,
I mean,
Sharp,
you can read a spooky book anytime. I
yeah,
mean, but
yeah.
up to you.
But if that's the case, then I definitely would have to go ahead and announce it by tomorrow night on office hours so people can have time to get it and everything. Lord of the Rings isn't Halloweeny spooky. Plus, that's that's a slog. We'd spend a year going through something like
that would be like.
People are talking about Frankenstein. That's another one that you could teach. I mean, courses have entire semester long courses are taught on Frankenstein. That's like I'd have to have a little more time to really do that justice. The Halloween tree is amazing. I would love that, but that'll be double Bradbury. So yeah, we'll see. Chris Damon's talking about The Mist. It's short. I haven't read The Mist yet. Fanman keeps telling me that I need to read The Mist. It's amazing. A lot of people tell me that, and I know I get it. But yeah, it's that's the thing too. We could do some short stories because there are some delightful short stories. We'll figure it out. So
Poe, something from Poe or
yeah,
Irving or Hawthorne or
yeah, definitely. So we'll come up with something. Crazy Kitty said Lovecraft. I have no desire to do a study through Lovecraft. Lovecraft, his wonderful strength and the thing that sticks through and continues his legacy was his amazing ability at lore building. And that's just something he tapped into, something so, seminal in the human psyche with his idea of the ancients and all of that. But he's not the best writer when it comes to actually writing down the stories. He's a horrible dialogue writer. He's kind of clunky sometimes and just like, it's yeah. So we'll figure out something. Steve Cruz said 50 Shades of Grey because it's horrible. Yeah, we'll figure something. I'll come up with some. I'll look at some of the things you guys are saying too, and I'll come up with some possibilities that I feel like I could feasibly do justice to with such short, prep time. And I'll talk about them tomorrow in the office hours, and then we'll all decide together from those. That sound good? Sound fair? And then I just need to double check on a few things of what's available for people to stream easily enough for the rewatch, and I'll announce that tomorrow night too. So there we go. That be the stream, folks. Muhammad said, "Are we ever going to do Lord of the Rings?" It'd be cool to, but I would need to
that would be a pretty long haul.
See, that's the
too.
thing. I mean, if we were going to do that for every Sunday, we'd be doing that for 2 to 3 years. Honestly, just doing it like we're doing now. I would have to spend a lot more time prepping, and we'd have to spend a lot more time more frequently streaming, and that would mean less time I have to actually go make money. So until this channel ever starts to really make more income, then that's going to be a problem doing something like that. But it would be fun. I mean, there's obviously tons to dig into like that. Maybe we could do something like that on my Catholic Bible Geek channel, because Tolkien was a Catholic, and it's impossible to ignore the Catholicism that's just laden within that story.
Lion the Witch in the Wardrobe.
Yeah, that's a good one too. Let me as long as I'm shilling for myself and I brought up the Catholic Bible Geek, let me drop the link in there if I can find it. I always keep meaning to put it in the description, but never do. I did make sure the description, the link to your channel was there, so that's good. I need to think of another video to do on this channel too. It's so flipping busy. Here's the link to the Catholic Bible Geek, my other YouTube channel that needs some love and subscriptions because it's you know, if you don't mind religious content, that's where it is, and could use a little more. Could use a little more starting from the beginning. So you know, I got to start out slow and ever ploddingly build. But also looking for ideas, you know, for if anybody has questions or ideas or things they'd like covered on that, you know, too, we can do that. There's that. What else was I gonna? Do you want to talk about anything you got coming up from your channel or anything else?
Got a couple things kind of in the planning stage. I asked one Miss Mara Jade about some scary movies that perhaps do a rewatch with her on.
Cool.
I may do The Fog at some point because I found a copy.
Somebody dropped it and I picked it up.
I dropped it, I picked it up. Ooh,
on the internet. Somebody dropped a link and I picked it up.
I dusted it off, said hi to Adrian Barbeau. So might watch that. And I'm trying to, you know, there's a couple that are possible. What was the other one that was? I didn't know if you were ever going to do The Witch. I might do The Witch if you don't.
Oh, go for it. Go for it.
Yeah, but I would love to see your opinion of it.
Yeah. Well, it's absolutely that, and The Conjuring is absolutely a must on my Halloween must viewing list this year. But I just don't know that I'm going to get to them in time to prep for rewatches or anything. So yeah, I'll definitely watch it and tell you what I think. But yeah, feel free to plan it on your own if you want to. Yeah. What times of the day or would you be thinking about doing a rewatch on your channel?
I'm not sure. I was gonna probably do another live stream another day or so, kind of asking people for possibilities. Maybe so. I was wondering if something like a Saturday matinee would work for some people, or a Sunday matinee, like something a little afternoon in the afternoon, about like 1 o'clock, 1 o'clock on a Sunday or a Saturday.
Yeah, yeah.
Or actually, Saturday, if I do it, it might have to be around noon. But just
I'll be asleep.
Jeez. Because right now we've got the Fan Man's Friday Night Brights, which this weekend is The Town of the Dreaded Sundown, a personal favorite. We got Saturday night, you do a rewatch. Sunday night we got the book club, and there's Tuesday night office hours. So if I do anything late, it would have to be a Monday or a Wednesday, and I don't want to go up against you on a Thursday.
Al, seriously, if you wanted to do any of those nights, I would gladly reschedule mine because, yeah, I know how it can be. And you're one of our group here, and we definitely don't want to compete with each other. Yeah, if you want to do one of those nights, like I'll move the book study easily. So you just let me know.
Yeah, Mara Jade, yes, the old Fog with the glowy-eyed pirate, not the new one. Bubba Hotel. Let's just say I have Casey Scott. Someone has dropped a copy of that, but for some reason I can't quite pick it up. It's one of those. You know, the right click for some reason is not doesn't want to work right.
Oh man. Muhammad's he's got a job interview coming soon. Wish me luck. Yeah, good luck, man. Definitely a job interview. Hope it's a good one. Hope it's one you want and you get it. Trick or treat. Yeah, trick or treat's a good one to do. You talk to Fan Man. He might be planning on doing that one. But yeah, that's a definitely must.
Trick or treat's awesome. Yeah, that'd be an awesome one to do.
Good stuff.
That would be a fun one to do with the three of us, all three of us. You know, watching.
Yeah.
Because I know Fan Man's got the one this week, and I think he's got a Dead and Buried or something he wants to watch, and then he has a couple that he hasn't revealed yet. That he is thinking about, but he's trying to get ones that are also rather available.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha.
Oh, and I might do the original Godzilla because someone dropped one of those too.
Oh, nice. That'd be cool. Yeah, it's perfect.
The original Americanized version with Perry Mason.
Okay, cool. Well, I'm going to pitch Tales from the Stacks again to folks who still haven't backed because this, as I said in the last update, probably about, yeah, wow, it's just about a week and a half. Everything should be in, if I'm thinking the time's right. Yeah, so you have very limited time to jump on this if you haven't already, and it's something you want to. And it's apropos to our Bradbury study because, as I said, the lady Inanna, her story right there, the lady in the middle there, she's the first story in the book. And the story I wrote for her, called The Lady Inanna, was originally written to submit to a Bradbury anthology. And it didn't make it into the anthology, so I kept going with it through my MFA program, polished it up through a bunch of workshops and everything with a bunch of writers and everything like that. And love the story. It's got a very Bradbury feel. But here it is there. She's the exotic sideshow dancer at a state fair. And these three boys are trying to decide they're going to sneak into the show. So it's a lot of good stuff there. So that's just one of the stories. And that's Ralph Del Mundo is doing the art for that one, which is gorgeous. And then illustrator Monk is doing the story for John Malin's cover there, A Fire in Winter. And here's his gorgeous art. I need to put up the lettered versions because they're all finished now. But yeah, that's a really great story. The third one, wonderful, gorgeous stuff.
You have got a plethora of wonderful artists.
I know, I'm telling you. Like, I'm really proud of these stories, and I know the stories are going to please people. But like I always say, even if I suck as a writer and you hate everything I've written, you will be happy you bought this book just for these artists. They're amazing. And then the last story, Mr. Ki-Young Lee himself, Ki-Young freaking Lee, is doing a story for me. I still don't know how that happened, but he's only got a couple more pages to turn in. He's been rocking through it. And they're the first 2 pages of his story, Discovering Evelyn. So very cool. Yeah, I'll have to show you some more from that. Yeah, I'll probably do some more reveals, probably post some pages to Twitter tonight just to kind of get people, out there again. A lot of tears for the Bewitching Beauties of Dave T's amazing Bewitching Beauty prints that he did. If you want that bundle, want those signed, awesome. And the Pablo Romero bookmarks, really great stuff. So links in the description to back that if you would. And speaking of Mr. Pablo Romero, the incredible talented Pablo Romero there, I do have a pre-campaign page up already for my next campaign, which will be launching at the end of October, which is entitled The Fall of Mithrisis. So that's what's right here. Yeah, I'm sharing it. Good. And all you need to do is just drop your email in there. There's nothing to buy or anything like that. It just it allows you to get updates about this. And if you put your email in here, and if you do end up backing it when the campaign goes live, you'll get a free print of this lovely lady right here, Contrera the Assassin. There'll be a lovely print done of her. You will get that free with your physical copy if you decide to back. If I do get 100 emails, I'll even give every email address here a secret tier that's a discounted tier for the that. So that link is not. I don't think I've remembered to put that in the description. So let me drop that here in the.
I feel so privileged to have read the larval form of this story.
Yeah. Al's one of my beta readers. He's one of my big go-to beta readers because beta readers have different strengths. Some of them will be able to critique you more on story, this or that. But what Al is amazing at, I mean, he will catch every single typo you made in a draft, and that is so immensely helpful. I mean, immensely helpful. So I've even told Ishii that, and Ishii's like, do you think I could pay him to read mine? Like, I'm sure you could ask him. So Al's a great reader to have.
If I could just get you to stop starting with contractions.
Al does not like it when we start sentences with contractions because we're still in 1940.
And but nor, they get you pretty far.
Don't you end those sentences with prepositions, young man.
What you talking about?
No, that's another thing you hate.
Well, it happens.
Which it is quite awkward and it shouldn't be done
Well,
all the time, but it
I
can be
have
done.
I have my quirks. I do quotation. I do my quotation marks. What you said, the European way.
Yeah, you got the British rules on your quotations.
Yeah,
Periods and commas go outside quotation marks. Drives me crazy.
it looks better that way. I'm
No, it
sorry.
doesn't. No,
Yes,
it
it does. At the
doesn't.
end of a sentence, where you have the thing, it should be the last word, quotation mark, then the period, because that's the end.
No, you got
The end is not the quotation.
these quotation marks floating up there with nothing to base them out. Then a period. It looks like the sentence has a tail. It just looks weird. So for those, the American rules are that periods and commas always, always, always go inside quotation marks. British and international language rules are that they follow logic. Is the period something that's being quoted? If so, it does go inside the quotation marks, whether Al likes it or not. But if it's not being quoted, then it doesn't. And same thing with commas. And for the internet, most people will probably abide by the international rules, which sort of makes more sense. But I teach at an American university, and I go by American rules.
Well, I like the one word you used there, logic.
Welcome, Wolfton Media just popped in. The C.S. Lewis space trilogy. Absolutely, Mohammed. That's a beautiful one to do. Definitely. All right. Well,
Something like Edgar Rice Burroughs or
yeah,
something like that. Jules Verne.
Oh yeah,
or H.G. Wells, one of those. That'd be awesome. I'd love to do a good classic. Pride and Prejudice.
You're gonna go ahead and do that one on your channel.
I was waiting for a reaction, and I was like, "Damn, where is it, dude?"
The other ones you're mentioning, like Burroughs and Verne, none of them are particularly good prose stylists. But what's her name? Oh my gosh, I'm blanking. Pride and Prejudice. Jane Austen. She's quite an amazing writer and a very good way with words and everything like that. But my channel isn't exactly the comedy of manners type of topic.
Pride and Prejudice and zombies.
There you go. I never read that. Never watched it or anything.
I watched the movie. It's a diversion. to use an Austin kind of thing.
Indeed.
It is quite diverting.
So that's the show for tonight, folks. Check out Big Al's channel linked below and his Facebook pages, facebook.com/Iconic Universal Monsters, Iconic Batman, a bunch of other stuff.
Big Al's Review-orama. See my latest went up yesterday. It was my review for Trilogy of Terror, which is a short little review. Not a lot to say, but gotta love that Zuni doll.
Oh, apparently we usually don't do memes for the book studies because we just never have. But apparently Chris Damon. Oh, this is awesome. This is too good not to share. All right, I gotta share this one. Hang on. Chris Damon does these really cool dry erase board pictures, and he did one for us here.
Uh-oh.
Take me backward. I want my forehead to be covered once more. About 10 years or so.
I'm like that. What? Seriously?
Oh, and look at Al, his beautiful full head of hair down there judging me. You don't get to judge me.
He's got my widow's peak pretty well, though. I mean, it's not a widow's peak, but it's like that pointy thing sometimes.
Yes, you can't judge the follically challenged. Now, for anybody, since I don't have the webcam on, no, I'm not bald, but I do have a hairline that has receded a bit, giving me a very large forehead, which was quite big to begin with anyway. So it's not like I'm all thinning and my hair is falling out. I still have a very thick head of hair. It just starts kind of high up. That's all.
Have you rethought your camera angle for your Catholic?
No, I don't think there's any angle that helps, honestly. I'm sort of wearing a Bret Michaels bandana. I don't know if it's going to help that.
Too bad the Catholics don't have something like a yarmulke, but that really wouldn't help.
That's really awesome. Well done, Chris.
Or like one of those what were they? What are they? The mantle, the veil, the veils that women wear.
Oh, the prayer shawls.
Yeah, but they're called. There's something. They're called something. I can't.
Mm.
Is it just? It's not just man. It's not a mantle. There's a word for it.
Wow, people are ripping on my my forehead. I love these things that Chris Damon does. He always it drives me crazy. He just like whips these up on a dry erase board real quick. It's like he could be hired. You know those people who do those dry erase videos. She's like trying to sell you something or whatever. Like he could totally do that because he just does these like in the space of whatever. They're awesome. I love the. I got a little file of the pictures of me sends.
Is the top of the carousel just like thing, or does it say something?
Oh yeah, it's got the words on it. See, young cougar, dark, old. What does that say?
Oh, okay.
Look at the big picture.
Is
that SOF?
Soft.
I don't think I'm getting that. He'll tell me in the chat in a second. I might just be being dense. Cougar and dark, young, old. Forget what that is. Thank you, Muhammad. He says I don't look old, look bad at all. Thank you. That's right.
You don't.
No, I don't. Son of Fritz. Oh, that's right, because that's his Twitter. That's right. Yeah, I see Chris Damon on YouTube. That's right.
Oh, okay.
Son of Fritz. That's his. He's signing it there for us. Yeah, gotcha.
That's cool. I like that. I like that.
I love that you're always in there too, judging me.
He has a. You know what? I just realized his style is very reminiscent of a friend of mine, named John. He used to draw, because when you look at it, do you remember Bloom County?
Yeah.
It's kind of that. It's kind of got that.
Oh,
that
okay.
That vibe to it. At least my friend always drew that kind of a vibe.
Gotcha. Yeah. Stephen Cruz says he'll give me $10 if I wear a Bret Michaels bandana on the next game stream. I will do it. I will. You better have the $10 super chat ready, buddy, because I'm doing it
for $10.
Yeah, I know. I'll wear a wig.
Yeah. Wear a clown wig and a clown nose.
$10, yeah. I can be bought. Christian said, thank you muchly. Apologies to the chat for my shameless no, not shameless at all. These are great. I mean, it's not like a rule that we don't do memes on the book study, that we just never have, because no one ever. I think too, I usually have to jump off pretty quickly, I think, usually. But yeah, I think that's how it got started. But yeah.
I always enjoy the memes.
Yeah, the memes are always fun. Great way to end things on. Keep us humble. Well, keep me humble anyway. Al's always like looking great in them.
And like I said, very little is. I don't want to say shames me, but I did invent the term titty belt.
You did. Yeah. Oh, that reminds me. You know what, Steven? If you don't mind, I'm going to save your. I think your song would be perfect for office hours tomorrow. We can even open with it. I think that'd be a good way to stir things up and get things weird right from the start. So I'll share that tomorrow night for office hours. Anything else, Al? I think we're good.
Yeah, I think we're good.
All right. Well, I got to go.
Last day. Oh, I mean, hey, it is August.
It's October.
It is October.
We are in autumn officially, and we are officially in October. It's on. Let's do this.
Yes. 'Tis the Halloween season.
Indeed. So, all right, folks, thanks for hanging out with us. It was a great study tonight. Looking forward to wrapping it up next week. And until next time, keep enjoying and digging deeper into the stories you love. Thanks for watching.
Got nothing.
All that. You've got nothing.
Nah.